Hello, ladies. Thank you so much for coming. I'm so honored that you came to hear me and that you'll be listening while you work. This is not any video to sit and watch, and indeed, I want to emphasize that this is not a watching video. This is a listening video so that you can get something done while you work. I know I always like to have someone talk to me or visit with me, and I like to listen to things, favorite movies or favorite stories or music while I work. And in the olden days, we used to sing all the verses we knew of every song, tell stories to each other, and we'd get through piles and piles of dishes made by a big family, and we got through many long walks from the main highway to the homestead by talking and visiting. And so this is a visit for you to listen while as you go and while you work. I'm Mrs. Sherman, and I'd like to welcome you if you're new here. There aren't any comments on the video channel because I really am just parking my videos here. I'm making them for my blog. Sometimes people have trouble making them work on YouTube, but if you'll go to my blog, they are embedded there and they'll work there. And please go to my blog, see what else is going on, and leave a comment. Also, please sign up for my blog post because there are other things going on besides videos over there. And today I want you to stay long enough before you get to folding and loading and unloading and sorting and doing all those things that are a little bit tedious. I want to show you my teacup. I have shown this to you before. I am going through my teacups again. I'm recycling them through my videos to show you again. And because I've reached the end of what I own, I am saving one that you haven't seen that's supposed to be for Valentine's Day. And as I have said before, Valentine's Day in America is for everybody. It's celebrated by everybody. Children at home love it, and even the young men like it. And I have seen the most interesting scene at the grocery stores where the card section is, of men, young and old, all ages, standing there reading the cards, trying to pick the right one for the people they love. And there's cards for mothers, there's cards for sisters, there's cards for daughters, there's cards for sons and in-laws and everybody. They're just friends. So it's for everybody. Everyone loves it. It's a bright time of year, and there's so many beautiful colors, and that's why I'm wearing this color today and showing you this teacup. This is a teacup I've shown before, and it is from the Fairmont Hotels. I got it at an antique store for about $8, but I understand they're quite expensive. I have never seen another one. I've always wanted to have more than one, and this is by Royal Dalton, and I'm trying to read the bottom of it, but I can't quite see it. It's in very tiny print. It looks like Pacific something. I'll get a picture of it for you so you can see it. And it is in such good shape, and I'm so proud of it. And when I set this cup out, it kind of goes with my outfit. And when I set this cup out for people to help themselves to a wee spot of tea, usually Yorkshire Gold, that's their favorite around here, I notice that they take this cup. They want this cup. There's one other cup which I will show you. I've shown it before, but I'll show you that one too. But there's two that are very favorite, and this is one of them. And so this is just a favorite cup. I love the little crown on the inside. I like anything on the inside of a cup. It's in really good shape. It's probably stoneware, but I really like, it's different. I really like this cup. And today also, before you get started, or no, you don't have to stop and look, but you remember in a previous post I had written something, I posted a picture of a book, and it was called Tea with Jane Austen, and it had an entry on it in the picture, and it said happy happy breakfast. And the title of the chapter is Tea in the Morning. Happy, happy breakfast, for Henry had been there. Henry had sat by her and helped her. And this is from one of the Jane Austen novels, and this is what the picture looks like. This is what the cover of this book looks like, but as it began to be reprinted, the covers changed. This is one of those loose covers, but the picture on the covers changed. So when you go to Thrift Books or A Books, you can get this book for very low price, maybe $4.95, maybe even less. And sometimes the postage is free, and you get a free book eventually after you have purchased a couple of them. So when you go there, the cover might look a little different, but it is Tea with Jane Austen by Kim Wilson. So I wanted to read something out of it to you, and this is the chapter on breakfast. I love that title, Happy Breakfast, Happy New Year, and happy breakfast, happy birthday. But I had never thought of saying happy breakfast, but what a wonderful attitude to wake up to happy breakfast. And if you are happy to be alive, you'll be thrilled with things like that you can wake up in the morning and say happy breakfast to someone. Okay, the breakfasts are generally very frugal. I suppose this is talking about Jane Austen's time, since it's talking about tea with Jane Austen. Now, whether or not the things we know about Jane Austen are completely accurate, I don't know, but this was a lot of fun to read. I haven't read it all, but there are some things about the herbs they used, about the type of tea they had, and how to make a perfect cup of tea. I suppose that depends on people in America. Most of us drink our tea without additives. We like to have it plain and clear. The breakfasts are generally very frugal, consisting commonly of tea and muffins or hot rolls with good butter. Coffee is less frequently used and is seldom good. I could rarely get it strong or clear, and in this only does there seem to be any proof that the English do not understand cooking. Letters from England by Joshua White, 1810. They just have their way of cooking, and they do better with the ingredients that they're familiar with, and tea is one of the things they do very well. So I hope that you enjoyed that. There are a lot of very pretty pictures and drawings in here. Let's see if I can find you one of tea. It's very pretty, isn't it? So I hope now, if you've got something to do, something you need to fold, something you need to load or unload, dishwasher maybe, or something that maybe you need to clean out a drawer, clean out a box of papers, make a bed. You do not have to sit here and watch me. Indeed, I forbid it, because there isn't anything going on here. I am not going to show you anything. I'm barely going to talk for a while, so you can have something to listen to while you work. I know I've got my favorite things to listen to, and I often put in a little DVD, a movie, or find something online that I like to hear. And I always enjoy Wives and Daughters listening to it again, because I pick up some interesting, or Pride and Prejudice, and I can pick up some interesting sayings. In fact, the other day I was listening to Pride and Prejudice, and I was working around the house, and then I thought, some of these things that I have been rejects from stores or other people that have given it to me, and I got to thinking that I was really in the mood to take things that were rejected by other people, and that is a la Jane Austen talking about Mr. Darcy saying that he wasn't in the mood to entertain people who had been rejected by someone else. But I was. And most of the things that you see in my house, someone else gave me, or I got them at a reject store. And I've enjoyed every minute of it. When you live in a little cottage like I do, there's not much room to redecorate, so it doesn't cost very much. If I were to change something like a carpet, it wouldn't be astronomical in price. And so one of the things that I like about, I call it the manse, because it's the preacher's home. There's very few of these places left, where there was a church building, and the preacher's home was right next to it, and they usually matched. If they were blonde brick, they'd be both of them side by side. You can still see these places, but they have sold off the preacher's home so that preachers could buy houses just like everybody else and have the equity. And but in a way, it's kind of a shame that they separated all these properties, because it was always really cute to see the church building and the matching house with them. But I live in one of the last ones that exist, and it's probably on its way out. It's getting very run down and old. Well, anyway, if you live in a small house, it can be an advantage, because it's not going to cost you that much to change out your curtains or change a carpet or just do any kind of remodeling. It's not as expensive as a large area. So today I'd like to say how honored I am that you would bother to come and listen while you work. And at any point you become disinterested and it starts to become boring to you, please feel free to turn it off and go on to something else. You don't have to stay and listen to me. And please feel free to go on. If 15 minutes is enough for you, please stop and don't worry about it. You know, you can always pick up later. And so to talk to you about what the reason that I'm doing this is because homemaking is very isolating. Now that is not necessarily a bad thing, but it feels pretty disappointing when you first start out and you don't realize it. You've chosen a work that is isolating on purpose. It is isolating because it has to be. There's no other way that you could function unless, of course, your children are around you or your parents or someone that you love that are part of the family. That's company for you, even if they're not talking to you. It's nice to have someone in the house, isn't it? And but it is isolating because it is something that has to be done with your whole mind and with your whole heart. All your arranging and cleaning and preparing food and creating that atmosphere to make your family happy cannot be done in a group. Now you might consult with your children how things would be better, look better, be served better, things like that. But for the most part, you don't really want to be working in a group because you'll work better in the home in isolation. Now, a lot of people will complain that it's lonely, but I don't think it's as lonely as it is isolating. It's very isolating because you're not going to have any kind of group awards. You're not going to have any kind of group approval. You aren't going to have to be working with a group, but it is an advantage because then you can work faster. You can make up your mind more quickly. You do not have to pass ideas through your office staff or through the manager, and you are free. You're totally free to live out your dream of having a lovely home. And I have seen people take the most humble place, and I would wonder, what in the world did they buy that for? And the lady, you can tell that a woman is there by the front porch. Now we have front porches in America, and we love them. We usually put a little chair out there and a little table, and it's like an extended room for us, kind of like the gardens were in the old days. But you can always tell when a woman cares about her home because the front porch has a plant on it, has something that looks pretty, and you can always tell that there's someone there that loves that home. And even the most run-down, broken-down, old-looking places, I would wonder why they would buy that, but they loved it and they fixed it up. It was easier and less expensive for them, and I have seen people take the worst places and make them nice. There are many stories about that, and there are even contractors who have bought whole neighborhoods that look like they were really on their way out and fixed them up and made them into what I call doll houses, and the people that lived in them loved them. And when a woman lives in a house, it makes such a difference. She's going to be all the difference in making that a beautiful and pleasant place to live. So in preparing for your day at home, and if you're new at homemaking, this might be very valuable to you. If you're a seasoned homemaker, maybe this won't make any difference to you. Maybe you'd like to go on and watch or listen to something else. That's fine with me. And I would like to speak to those who just need a little bit of encouragement because we do often repetitive things, same things. And I will explain that when I get down to the housekeeping. I've got 3 sections here. One is preparation, which would be preparing for your home life that day. The other is the homemaking, and the third is the dealing with people. All of them I try to make interesting. They're all interlocked, interrelated. And so today I want to talk a little bit about your appearance, because even if you feel that no one is going to see you today, now we all have cars and we all go to the grocery store and the post office and all the places we need to go. And many of us complain. People talk about the homemaker being isolated and homebound. They're not housebound at all. Most of us are wanting not to have to go out. Could this be a day that I don't have to go out and do some business in town? Could this be a day that I could just stay home and get something done? And so even though we have the advantage that most of us have a car of our own and our husbands have their own cars, uh, it sometimes gets to be where we wish we could stay home. We wish we could be homebound, because there is always some reason that we're needed, something that we have to go get, and so it's hard sometimes to stay home. But this is one of the days that I get to stay home, and I'm going to devote an hour of it to others, to you, and this is my way of giving back to others what I have been given, the blessings that I have received. I would like to share some of the knowledge and some of the inspiration that has been given to me. So prepare yourself as though you are attending something important to dress up for. What I'd like to say about that is, would you be as happy to go and visit, to go and wait for royalty to walk by or to parade by if they weren't dressed up? Would you be at all encouraged by that if they walked past and they just looked like they didn't care what they wore and they weren't careful about it? They weren't really dressing for the public. And I know we're home, but we can dress for our own public. And your own public is your family. If you have no family, dress up for yourself so that it does boost your mood quite a bit. And so that consists of getting up, and if you haven't already, you might want to turn this off and go get your shower and go get dressed and take care of your skincare and your hair. That just makes such a big difference, because you'll be looking at yourself in the mirror, and when you see that you're starting to look a little more bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, you somehow get a little more energy from it. Now, one of the problems, I believe, that you can encounter is the problem of waking up discouraged, feeling discouraged and unworthy, especially if there are parts of your home that are not up to standard, not up to par, not up to what you would like them. And of course, if you're a seasoned homemaker, you will have maybe a whole room full of things that need to be straightened out or gone through. And so one of the problems is the problem of waking up discouraged, and you can feel unworthy. And so what I would suggest is, first, get up. There's something about getting upright that changes the way you think about things. It's often tempting to just lay there and moan, but it's better to get up, and there's something about walking around that changes the way your mind works. And you can actually become more encouraged just by getting up and getting dressed. And also, I would suggest that you behave as though you have dignity. So if you showed up to some event and you weren't dressed up appropriately, now we out in the West, on the West Coast of America, tend to be more casual. And so even at weddings and funerals, probably a lot of people aren't wearing their finery. They will be dressed up, but it won't be as expensive looking. And we do tend to be a little more casual, but there are some very nice casual clothes that you can get. And of course, I do my shopping at stores that I can afford, and it also helps me to stay home, be able to stay home. So what is your purpose is to manage your home, to guard it and guide it, and that's what the Bible tells us to do. And a lot of people have overlooked that and thought that maybe they could just neglect it. But eventually, if you neglect it, and of course it starts with your appearance. If you start neglecting your appearance, it becomes easier to neglect your home. So let that be a start. If you could get yourself looking pretty, looking pretty to yourself, and you get to look in the mirror, you kind of examine yourself and check your attitude, and look as good as you can, as though you were going to be meeting someone very important. And your family is more important than anybody else. And I think children notice this too, that if their mother is just kind of slothful for the family, but then if she's expecting company, she gets all dolled up. I don't think that's good. I think it's better to be dressed up for your family. That's the most important thing. And don't let those clothes sit in the closet that you'll never wear, maybe. I know sometimes I have had to buy something formal, and I'll wear it to the one event, and then it will hang in my closet for years. So lately I've just been getting them out and wearing them out. So today I'm going to share with you the idea of dressing up and giving yourself dignity and in order to manage this important job. So you dress as though you were going to go to a very important job. And you know, one of the things we used to do in homeschool that was so much fun for the children was they would get dressed up like pioneers maybe and go to the end of the driveway and then walk back and pretend they were coming to the schoolhouse and knock on the door. Well, you know, when you get dressed up and you act like you are approaching a job that's very, very important, that's how you should feel. You're coming in the door to do a job. And it's actually quite effective to think that way. So it helps you to feel motivated, and your appearance affects your performance, and it affects the atmosphere of your home, and it affects others, and it also affects your influence. You have no idea how your influence will be. You don't really know what we don't often know. I mean, years later, when I've lived in a certain place, you know, I think, you know, nobody really took very much note of what I was doing. But years later, somebody will call me and say, I remember you, and I remember that you did this and such and everything, and it always stuck in my mind. So you never know how much influence you're going to have on people. So always live as though you are an influence. Always live an influence. So if you're having trouble, here's the thing. If you're having trouble with your appearance and you just can't seem to get into it and get it right, then take it to God and pray about it. You will find a difference in your mind. I told you about this previously. When you pray for something, you're also planting it in your own mind and remembering, helping yourself remember that this is what you are determined to do. So always take it to God in prayer, and He will answer as well. So today I'm going to try to share with you how these things are so motivating. And I'm going to move on because I said that the appearance affects the work, the homemaking, and then the homemaking affects the people. So those are my three subjects: appearance, homemaking, and people. So I'm going to go on to homemaking. And I would say, first of all, before we go into it, when we're talking about appearance, you need to discover the kind of clothing that you like, that you feel good, that give you a lift, that make you feel full of life. And often it centers on color. There are some colors that lift you up more than others. And if you're still wearing jeans and you just can't seem to get into maybe wearing a skirt, and I did mention if you're wearing a dress or a skirt, make it close to the body, make it the column, the narrow skirts, because they won't catch on anything. And you can move around the house more gracefully and without any problem. You know, things catch on things, and especially we live in these smaller homes now, you need to have something that you can wear that won't catch on things and won't tear. So, but do choose something that you feel good in, that makes you happy. You know, I always wanted to get one of those April Cornell dresses, and so I have there's a store in the area that sells them, and I'm going to go have a look at them. I don't think that they are appropriate for what the home. They seem to be a little bit more formal, but I would just like to have a look at them and see if that would be something. They have a lot of cottons, and cotton seems to work well for the homemaker in the house. And you can always wear a pretty apron over it to protect it. So wear something that lifts your mood and gives you a feeling of prettiness. And if you're still not wearing skirts and you're still wearing jeans, at least find pretty tops. You can find a lot of pretty ones that are quite long. Some of them go down to the knees and give you a lot of coverage, but also are very feminine. Some of them have lace on them. Some of them have just beautiful clear colors, and they are available everywhere. So, and you can wear an apron over them to protect your clothes. Now, aprons will wear out quite quickly if you're wearing them every day, so you want to have several of them. So you take care of your hair, you take care of your skin, and you need to be feeling, and that should make you feel good about yourself. At least it's a start, okay? At least you look good. And even if everything's falling apart around you, at least you can have a little confidence that you're not falling apart, that your appearance is pretty well put together. So, take care of your skin and use a little scent if you like it. And so if you're not feeling good about yourself, then you will once you start cleaning things. And someone left a comment recently that said she had cleaned her kitchen up, just made her feel so good. That will give you a feeling of dignity. That just is so building up to have something clean, a room that's clean to walk into. So now I would like to talk more about the daily work of the home. And I hope you're not watching me. I don't really have anything to show you here, but I will be reading some of my notes, so I'll be looking down here. But one of the things is that helps you to get started in the homemaking. Of course, you have daily work, and that is everybody has dishes, laundry, floors, clutter, beds. That's your daily work. And you want to make sure that you can get that done. I don't always get it done every day if there are other urgent matters going on. But if you will just say, what is the most urgent thing I need to do right now? After you've prepared yourself, after you're dressed, what is the most urgent thing? And if you've got children, their needs are first. If there are meals that need to be prepared, that would be urgent, wouldn't it? And get in the habit of making meals. I like to get up in the morning. My mother used to get up in the morning and start the dinner. She would start the roast or whatever she was making, and it would go in the oven, and it was not a high heat, so it would cook all day. But, we knew it was comforting to know and smell that dinner was going to be coming. Even if it was early morning and it was breakfast, we would smell that roast, and we would know there's just something stabilizing knowing we're going to have dinner. And that was so important to all of us when we were growing up, is we really looked forward to that dinner. And that was in the times, before you could go out to eat, and there wasn't any other way to get dinner except to have it at home. And so that was really, really important to us, to go, through the house knowing there was dinner in the oven or on top of the cook stove. We had a cast iron cook stove, and my mother had a big roasting pan on top of that, a metal one, and she often roasted everything on top of the stove instead of in the oven, and that was fine too. But it was kind of nice to lift the lid up and look, yes, there's going to be dinner. So you want to do first things first, and whatever is the most urgent. Is there a bad smell in your house? Do you need to do the laundry? Do you need to? Now, a lot of people, they'll do laundry, they'll do dishes, but they won't get at the things that really will give the house a fresh smell. You need to wipe out your trash can. You need to clean out your laundry basket. You need to clean out your bathtub, your toilet, your sinks. Your kitchen needs to be really looked after, especially under the sink. That can get real musty under there. And these are things, but they're not urgent until they start to, and they still start to alarm you by the scent. So, but as far as being urgent, always whose needs need to be taken care of first. And so with some of us, we will need to have shirts ironed for the men in our family if they want us to do that. I know my husband often irons his own shirt, but I like to iron too. And so just whatever's the most important. And for me, I like to make sure that front room is cleaned up, because the day that I decide to leave the clutter and not do it is the day all these people start coming to the door. Isn't that called Murphy's Law or something like that. But this will give you a lift. If you wake up in the morning feeling unworthy, a little bit discouraged or confused, start cleaning things up. It's amazing how that will balance your thinking. And so it also, you need to commit all this to prayer, because we're actually quite helpless without God. It is He who enables us. And once you have decided that you're going to lean on the Lord for all of your success, it's amazing how much more you can get done. So after you have done all your kitchen, your living room, your beds and stuff, then you might be able to attack some little thing in your house, maybe your bookshelf or something that isn't urgent, but you know that it needs to be cleaned out, and you might want to work on it for 20 minutes. But then you need to go through your house again and maintain all that daily work. You just go, and you know that you don't need to create work for yourself. If you will clean as you go, if you walk through the house, you're on the way to put towels away in the bathroom, and you see something that needs to be picked up, just pick it up. Don't wait for a work day. Pick it up and put it away. And I have talked about this before, to handle things only once if you can, and not to collect it all and then have to put it away again once it's collected, and just do it. For one thing, if you're a little overweight, all those little trips you make to put one thing away is going to help you keep your weight down to normal. So I think that's important too. And also, children love to help. They love to put things away and will be glad to help you. But putting things away is a very good habit, and so that way you don't don't save things for a work day. And clean up around you in wherever you're sitting, wherever you're standing. You stand in your living room, kind of look around, see things that need to be moved, put away, cleaned, you just go do it. And then you don't have to wait for one of those horrible work days that stresses everybody out. So here are some, I wanted to mention to you about the house. I'll read from my notes here. And that is, even if you find yourself often lacking in focus or motivation, or even alone, you get up in the morning and your responsibility is all laid out for you. And really, this is wonderful. I've written down, if you find yourself often alone, your God-given responsibility is right at your fingertips and your feet. It's the floor you walk on. It's the kitchen you use. It's the cup you drink out of. And it's the clothing that you're wearing. These all become work. These all become things you need to look after. So your work is set out for you. And I've mentioned here that you need to dress up for a brand new day. Isn't it wonderful? We get a brand new day, and we can either face it with a bad attitude, and or we can get up and we can say, I've got a brand new day. I wonder what I could do today that would be delightful for someone. And so God enables us to get up, and there's something about getting upright that gets your thoughts in order. And also remember that there may be other people that depend on you. So you need to be able to put yourself together and put your house together, and just thank God for it, because it's a work that's set out for you. And you do not have to have a boss standing over you and telling you what to do. Once you get into housekeeping, there are a lot of books that you can read about it if you want to. But basically, I think you learn to do housekeeping according to the needs of your house and your household and the people in your house. So, and you have to kind of work around them. And your rituals and your routines cannot chase everybody away. One of the things that I like to do at night is to go through with a light. The lights are all out, and I like to go through with the light and go into every room and pull the drapes and the curtains shut and just check everything out, turn out lights, go through and just, make sure the front door is closed, and different things put away, get ready for the next morning. But you can't do things like that if it's inconveniencing people. If there's someone still outside going for a little walk or a breath of fresh air, and you're ready to go to bed and you lock the door, well, they can't get back in. So you can't be so zealous that, and you can't turn off lights when people are in the room and they're still reading or they're still talking or doing something. You can't be so zealous that the house starts to run everyone else. You have to just make sure that the home is accommodating to people. And one of the mistakes we make is we often become too wanting to follow so many rules. But you have to get to know your people. You have to get to know the routines of everyone and see how you can serve them without making them unhappy or uncomfortable. Now, I would like to talk a little bit about the last 30 minutes. If you don't want to listen anymore, would you please feel free to turn it off and go on to something else, and you can always come back to it another time, maybe for another day of housekeeping. So I wanted to talk to you about, this is about dealing with people, so it's about inductive reasoning and deductive reasoning. I've talked to you about it before. I've written articles about it on my blog years ago, so I thought I'd just talk to you about it today. And I'll explain it to you the way that I know how to explain. You might be able to use different illustrations, but this is the way that we use it here in our home. And because it's we do it, of course, religiously and biblically, inductive reasoning and deductive reasoning. So you're reading the Bible and you find out that there's something that you should be doing or should not be doing, and so you say, well, I had an uncle and he lived this certain way, and he's okay. He did okay, and he was pretty successful in life. So I'm going to ignore this truth, this biblical truth, and you can substitute anything you want to for this. You can say maybe bad business dealings. Let's just say in business, you learn that there are certain things you can do and certain things you can't do, certain things that work and certain things that don't work. But then you start using inductive reasoning, and you'll say, well, the friend that I had such and such a business, he did pretty well, even though he didn't follow this rule. And instead of the deductive reasoning, this is the way that it works. This is the way that is truth. This is the way of truth. So we use it when we're trying to teach the Bible, we're having Bible studies. The way of truth is what is laid forth in the Scriptures, and this is what it says. Therefore, that's how I should change my life, and that's how what I should follow, and I should adjust my mind and my life and my emotions to this way, because this is the way of truth, and this is what is stated forth in the Scriptures. But many people will say, well, I had a friend who doesn't do that, and my friend turned out okay, so that's how I'll do it. And they go by mostly emotion. And this is one of the problems with just about everything that we deal with, even not in a religious sense, but even in the home and with dealing with people. Instead of following good sense, and maybe you want to teach your children to follow good sense, and you want them to do something a certain way, and they will say, well, my friend doesn't do that. You see, but that's inductive reasoning. That's like I'm taking it into my emotions and I'm approaching it emotionally instead of soundly with good truth and wisdom. So that's the only way I know how to explain that, but it becomes a problem later on, and I will be using it at other times. Because too often I think in any kind of problem that we have, whether we have a problem in the home or socially, somebody will get offended because they feel that their beliefs were trod on, and that but they're not looking at truthfulness. So this is what I wanted to say, the difference between inductive reasoning and deductive reasoning. Now, Mr. S could explain it much better, But the reason that I brought that up is because we might be coming across it when I'm talking about dealing with people and working with people. Now, there is also something that I would like to bring up that has been going around for a long, long time, and that is false. And if you're dealing with people, you're going to come across it. And it's interesting that a homemaker, she seems to be isolated, but yet a lot of these people problems come to her. And yet, if she were in the workplace, probably no one would bother her. But I think a lot of people think she's open to ideas, open to suggestion, and there'll be people that will maybe even try to run your life because you don't have a boss over you. You don't have a structure over you. You don't have a corporation running you. And you're running by your own heart and by your own awareness of what needs to be done, and your own knowledge of what is most wise. You learn wisdom, knowledge, and understanding, and someone else comes along and they want to disturb you. Now you might say, Mrs. Sherman, that's never happened to me. That's good. That's good if that's never happened to you. It does to some people, because ladies become targets of people who think that they should be controlled. If you don't appear to have any kind of boss over you, somebody wants to come and boss you. And one thing that they like to do is come and tell you how to live. And especially if you're home, because some people feel that if you're home, you're available. You're not busy. You have time to listen to this. And I think on the name of God, many of us allow these people in our house because we think that we have an opportunity to help them, to minister to them, and to enlighten them about homemaking. So, but this might not always be a good idea, because I think the best thing you can do is show an example of being busy and being very business-like in your homemaking, and not letting people derail you and distract you with arguing. And one of the false beliefs that's been going around for a long time, I thought I would bring this up in my next homemaking support housekeeping radio. And that was the idea and the belief that everyone should share in one person's guilt. And this happens when there's someone in the home that has a bad day. They wake up in the morning and they're not happy and they're going to have a bad day, but they make everybody else participate in it. They make everyone unhappy around them. Now, it could be an adult too, not just children. But when we were little, our parents would send us back to bed, make us start all over, send us back to our room and make us, we just weren't ready. They used to say he or she got up on the wrong side of the bed. And it meant she was cranky when she got up, and they would send us back. They sent us back to bed. Well, now people feel free to make everyone participate in the awful feelings that they have. They're not happy. They got up on the wrong side of the bed. They're cranky. I talked to you about figures of speech. That's an old figure of speech. I don't think we should lose our figures of speech. In fact, I think families should develop their own figures of speech. You have your own unique language, and I think it's just delightful. It's what makes our culture what it is. And so, yes, the getting up on the wrong side of the bed, and that everybody should share in that this person is having a bad day. Now, of course, we know everyone in the family, they love each other, and they should sympathize with those who are hurting and those who are weaker and those who are, in need of emotional support. Yes, of course, we do. We share that. But I don't think that we should share in someone else's, making everyone suffer for our own guilt. If we make a mistake, we shouldn't make everyone upset about it. And so I have understood that is part of an ancient philosophy, the belief that everyone should share guilt equally. And I'm not sure how deep I want to go into that, but that's not biblical at all. The other thing that I wanted to say that there's a couple of things that you will need to know when dealing with people and dealing with people in the home, and especially as a mother or homemaker, is to avoid the habit of joking about your flaws. Now, it's fun for a little while. You might say, oh, that sounds just like something I would do, be forgetful or something, because there are some people that will use it and push it and create a stereotype of you that is not true. And you started it, because a lot of the things that people say to us only come from the information that we gave them. For example, if you say to them, I can't, if someone calls you, someone talks to you, somebody in the home says something to you, and you'll say, I just really don't think I can manage to do that today because I just didn't get much sleep last night and I got up on the wrong side of the bed. They may take that and run with it, like Jane Austen said of Harriet, you take an idea and you run with it. You run away with it. Be careful not to joke too much about your flaws. That's not to say that we think we're so important that we cannot admit something that is wrong, but you have to be careful who you do this around, because some people will take that and run. And be careful what you say about your children, especially if you are in a large family, a group, a church, anywhere in town, a small town. Be careful you don't say, my son just hates such and such, or my daughter doesn't like such and such, because they take that little nugget and off they go with it, and they build a big case about your children, about your son or your daughter, and they stereotype them and they label them and they peg them as a certain type, and these children can't live it down, and eventually it causes terrible problems. And also, don't be going around running yourself down. If you do that, then people, it lowers the respect, self-respect, and the respect of other people have for you, and they also look down on you. And I'm not saying that it's important to me whether someone thinks I'm dignified or not at all. I am just saying, do not lead other people's minds in the wrong direction. It's not good for them to think ill of you. It's not good for them to joke about your flaws. It isn't good for them. It causes them to gossip. It causes them to think more of themselves than they ought to. It causes them to look down on others. So I'm not saying I'm trying to say you deserve a better status or anything like that. But what I'm saying is be careful what you say to people. And be careful what you say to people. And warn your husband, too, because sometimes they'll say something and, they don't even think about it. Like Mr. S has made a few blunders, and it's gotten back to me, and I'm thinking, wow. I think the one that I'm thinking was the most amusing was when I didn't show up to some gathering, some social gathering that I go to sometimes with him, and I wasn't able to because I had a problem that week with the sink and the water and everything, and I was still cleaning up and kind of trying to get my kitchen back in order. And it was just too overwhelming to go to this social event. I would have had to change my clothes, get a shower, find something to wear, and then in the meantime, then I knew I would come home late at night to this awful kitchen, and I said to him, I really could use the time. Could you just make apologies for me and tell them that that I'm in this situation here trying to clean up after this flood, And what he did was so amusing, but it's just an example to show you that you have to be careful. He did no harm. I will say that. It was kind of funny, but it's amazing how people with small minds will grasp onto something and just take it to town. And so people asked, well, where's your wife? Where's Lydia? And he said, she didn't finish her work, so she couldn't come. Well, of course, that really got the tongues wagging. The way he phrased it was just, you couldn't have gotten any more clever the way he phrased that if he had tried. He said she didn't get her work done, so she couldn't come, making it look like he had put his thumb down on me and made me stay home to finish my work like a school child. And that wasn't the way that it was, but I got phone calls, I got texts, I got emails, and the suspicions were rising, that things were not quite, that I was locked up in my house and put to hard labor, and I couldn't go to these wonderful social events. And sometimes I just beg off of social events so that I can get my house in order, because I sleep better at night. I think better. I I I'm more pleasant to be around if my house is the way that I like it. If you're like me and there's some aggravating spot in your house that you just can't seem to get fixed, or needs repaired, or needs painting, or needs cleaned up, you are not as relaxed, you're not as happy, and it does bother you. And I'm very blessed because I have a husband that knows that that I will not be happy and not be as relaxed, and I won't be able to serve my family as well if there's something that's bothering me, and he will try his best to fix it. But that was one example of how you've got to be careful what you say to people about yourself. Never demean yourself. Never, because this is not saying that you think you're so great that you should make other people think that you are better than they are, or anything of that nature. But you have to be really careful what you say to people. They're just not all at the same level of maturity. They're not all real aware of the world and the way it works. And they can take things, even older people, they're not mature just because they're old. And they can take things the wrong way. They can spread it around, and then it will get back to you, and you will have something to live down. Now, I remember one time someone spread a rumor about me. I was really young at the time, and I had 3 little children, and I had quite a struggle to get through a day with them and get them in their baths and get them in bed, and then I'd be exhausted at night. And so while they were really little, I wasn't doing much socializing or entertaining, and someone spread a rumor that I wasn't hospitable. Well, I let it upset me, and I planned a party, and I invited this person, and I put on the best that I've ever done, and the children were there, everybody was welcome and everything, and never said a thing about it, but I just smiled all the way through it and just proved myself by my works. So I never heard another thing uttered about that after that. But I don't think that it would have been necessary to do that had I not said something somewhere like, I'll be glad when I can get back into having dinners for people, or hospitality, or anything that I used to do. You say something like that, you could just put a bug in their ear. Do you know what that is? You can put a bug in their ear or a bee in their bonnet. So these are more of these famous sayings. It's just people will grab onto something if they're small-minded, and there are small-minded people. So now I want to spend the rest of the time warning you about your own personality so that you do not stimulate this kind of reaction in other people. First of all, avoid small-mindedness, like getting caught up in tiny little details and treating others as though they're not quite telling you every detail of the truth. We're going through a phase in our culture where if you don't tell everybody every sin you've ever committed, every blunder you've ever made, or every fault that you have, they think that you're hiding something. They think that you're lying. But it really isn't good form to let things out that will make people's minds go into small details and start imagining things or start spreading things. And so you yourself need to avoid small-mindedness, like getting caught up in talking about tiniest little details, making people stand in front of you while you talk about something for a long, long time, never taking a breath, and never letting them interact in the conversation. Have you ever been around someone who does that? They'll have you standing at attention. They'll even stand in front of the door and you can't get past them. And they want to tell you some long, boring thing that you really aren't interested in, and you can't get past them. And it's full of tiny little details. I would like to give you an example, but I try to forget those things. But the tiniest little details, maybe about how they found something or lost something, and which might be interesting to some people, but not too much to others. And I'm not saying that that is the problem, but be careful to avoid small-mindedness. Don't get caught up in tiny little details. Be careful with the habit of contradicting. That means that I think possibly when we're really young, we think it's smart to contradict because we're becoming critical thinkers, and we're looking for a little flaw in everything anyone says, and so we will contradict it, correct it, criticize it. That's really not nice. It's not nice conversation. It's just conceited arguing. And so be careful. Avoid the habit of contradicting. Then avoid the habit of joking about your flaws. I went into great detail about that. It's fun when you're with a best friend, but be careful how that might get out. Avoid long explanations. Be careful if you're around people, even in your home, that have bad conversation habits, that have a problem of sucking you into an argument or running you down. Be careful not to let their bad conversation habits rub off on you or affect you so deeply that you can't function as a homemaker. Now remember your goal. Remember the big goal, and remember what I said about the runner. Those who are in a race, do not look around at the other runners and get distracted by the audience and look around. They're looking at a goal. They're headed for a goal. So you can't be distracted by things like this, because you have to be the guide of the home, the guard of the home, the keeper of the home, and you have to be a someone who creates an atmosphere of the home, and you have to keep it safe, and you have to give it that atmosphere that you're wanting to. You cannot let these things that people say and do distract you from that. You have to have that long-term goal that you're headed for. And if you'll look at people who, for instance, we have a neighbor, he's in his 70s, and he tinkers with old cars. You can tinker with those. You can take the parts out, exchange them, put new parts in. And if anyone goes over to see him to ask him how he's doing, he'll look up for a minute and he'll say, fine, got to get back to work, and then he'll go right back to work. And we can do that too, but we can also be kind to our children and our families. But if it's someone who is trying to distract you or wants to argue with you, have to remember your ultimate goal, and don't let the things that they say get in you so deeply that it hurts you and crushes you so that you can't do anything. You have to be careful not to let their bad habits, conversation habits, rub off on you. You be careful that you don't let their conversation affect you so deeply that you give up. Because this is one of the things, is in being the guide of the home, the guard of the home, and the keeper of the home, you have to realize it's just like everything else. There will be those. And those things, maybe not just people, but maybe events in life that try to distract you from that. And so whether they do it by bad conversation habits, by criticism, by just demeaning and things like that, you have to rise above it. So ladies, I hope that this has been helpful, and I hope that you got a few things done, and I really like seeing your list. Be careful when you write your list. Don't get too personal, but do tell me what all you did in your house, that work that you've accomplished, and leave it in a comment. Also, be sure to subscribe to my blog, because then you get other posts besides the videos. And also, I want to just add one more thing, and that is that you have to have something else that you do that isn't housework, that is of interest to you, that you might not always do, but just have an interest, a side interest. One of the things I like to do is arrange silk flowers, and I have one in the background there with that new blush color that Dollar Tree has. If you haven't checked those out, the new blush roses that they have are very interesting. They look very pretty with red, and I like to make a little a little posy or a bouquet. And sometimes I give them away to ladies in my class, or I set them around seasonally. I put them all back in the box, and I don't glue them together. I use them again. I take them all out of the styrofoam and start over and use them with different seasons. But I'm sure you all have different interests, but they don't have to be lifetime interests. You can be interested in something for a while and move on to something else. But this is important because these are things that don't have to be done again. If you are washing dishes and washing clothes, those are all going to have to be done again. If you are making meals, that's going to have to be done all over again. And welcome to the new day where you're going to be doing the same thing you did yesterday. That's why I say have something different every day that you can look forward to. After you've completed a certain amount of tasks, tell yourself, when I get finished with this, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to make myself a card, I'm going to make myself a bouquet, I'm going to write a letter to a friend, something that gives you some relaxation and pleasure that is not your daily housework. Now, for my part, I have learned to make housework enjoyable enough that it entertains me. I can actually do it and quite enjoy it. So I hope that you can learn to do that too. And if you have any ideas for subjects, please leave it in the comments. And make sure that you pray about everything. And please come back and view the next blog post. It might not be a video, but God bless all of you. Thank you for your love. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for your donations, and I'll see you next time. Bye.